Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to do a quick ramen tutorial. So I'll make a bowl of ramen and you can follow along. So there's some things that I've done ahead and I'll explain that as we go along. So the thing to remember about ramen, unless you're just going to open a package and boil it up with a package, with a little flavor packet, there's 4 parts to ramen. One part is the broth. And I'll talk in a minute about how we're making this broth. But this broth has been simmering for a good couple hours. So a good ramen broth takes a long time to make. Some of them take as much as 12 hours, but this one is only a couple hours. So it's pretty quick by ramen broth standards. Of course, you'll make enough ramen broth so that you can put it in the refrigerator or freeze it or whatever you want to do. And so that's the broth. That's one part. Another part is called the tara, and that's T-A-R-E. And what the tara is, it's actually the flavoring that's in the ramen. The ramen broth itself is very, very lightly flavored. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. You might say that it's a little more subtle. So tara is like a concentrate, and you can spend a lot of time to make tara, which is not what we're going to do today. The tara that we're going to use is actually a bouillon. And this is a paste bouillon. It's called Better Than Bouillon. It's really good stuff. And this one is a lobster base. So I'm going to take about a teaspoon of this lobster base, and I'm just going to put it right in the middle of my bowl. And what we'll do eventually is we'll use this to flavor the broth when we put it in. So that's the tara, and that's the second part. The third, obviously, are the noodles, and we are going to use dried noodles. Just so you'll know, full disclosure, we're going to use a package of ramen noodles, but we are not going to use the flavor packet. All right. And when the time comes, we're going to drop these dried noodles into the water. By the way, the dried noodles were actually invented by a guy named Ando Mamafuku, and he invented them back in the 1950s when Japan was going through a food crisis, basically. And he figured out how to preserve fresh noodles basically by deep frying them. And then what he found is that if you did that, you could reconstitute them in a couple minutes just in some hot water. So that's what we'll do. When I'm about 2 minutes away from putting the ramen together, I'm going to just drop this into this boiling water. So the fourth component of ramen is the toppings, or are the toppings. And our toppings today are going to be a little protein. So I have some sliced ham, and this is just deli ham that I've sliced into strips. So we're kind of going to make fat noodles out of the ham. And we're going to fry that up a little bit. So I'll start that. I'll put maybe a teaspoon of oil, a little fry pan here. Let's spread that. And you can't smell this, but that was garlic flavored oil, which is great. So we'll just put those in there and we'll stir them around. And while they're cooking up, I'll get on with some of the other things. Another topping that we can use are vegetables. And I've got three vegetables. I'm going to be using some scallions. We'll use the green part, and we'll also use the white part. And I've cut them up a little differently. These I've cut across, so they're just kind of little circles. I've cut off the white part of the scallion, and I've made it into, I've julienned it basically. So it's kind of longer pieces. The white part has a stronger onion flavor than the green part. We're also going to use shishito peppers, and these are fresh peppers from our farm share. And shishito peppers are a Japanese pepper. They're very mild, and we can use the whole pepper except for the end. And we'll just put those in with the soup later. We'll give this a stir. Turn that up a little bit. And another topping that we have will be some mushroom. And this is a baby portobello. There we go. And the final topping, I'll talk about in a minute. Let me put in, I'm going to put in our noodles. We'll put those right in there. And that will take about 2 minutes to cook. So the final topping is going to be our ajitama, which is our marinated eggs. And I showed you how to make these in last week's tutorial, which you can look up. But here's one right here that's been marinating for a day or so. And we'll just cut that right in half. So it's nice and soft in the middle. And that will be ready. Now I wanted to try an experiment. And normally what you do with the ajitama is you boil the egg, you know, for like 9 minutes so that it's soft. And then what you'll do is you'll peel it and you'll soak it in some soy sauce, mirin wine, and sugar. And what happens is, you know, it absorbs some of that. Looks kind of cool. But I wondered what would happen if I didn't peel the egg, but just cracked it. And I wondered if I would get a marbled egg as the soy sauce was absorbed through the cracks. And in fact, I did. So I have a marbled egg in addition to just my regular egg. So that's kind of fun. So let me cut that one. So I've got 2 of these. And you want to just marinate those, you know, probably for 4 or 5 hours at minimum. And then the maximum would be 2 days. Because after that, it gets too salty. And in fact, the yolk will actually start to absorb some of that salt. So my noodles are just about done. So I'm going to shut those off. You don't want to ever overcook ramen noodles. You want them to be al dente or chewy in the middle. So that's good. So let's talk really quickly about our broth. So the broth that we're making today was actually, the broth itself is made from boiling the shells of mussels. There we go. And so we've got the flavor of the mussels in there. I also have some scallions for a little onion flavor. And this big piece here is kombu, or konbu, and it's a type of seaweed. It's kelp. And what we've learned about the kelp, other than it being very healthy for you, is that it has something called naturally occurring glutamate. And some of you might recognize monosodium glutamate, which is a synthetic form of flavoring. And it's the 5th flavor called umami. And so this has been boiling for quite a long time, and so it's full of that 5th flavor umami. So that's been simmering. My ham strips are done. They smell great. So let's put it all together. So what we'll do is I'm going to, the things that I'd like to blanch a little bit, I'm just going to put those in first, because that will end up on the bottom of the soup, of the hot broth. And I'll put in some mushrooms that I've cut up. And my scallions are going to be more for a condiment. And one other thing that I'm going to put in now is something called wakame. And what it is it's dried bits of seaweed. And what will happen is when I pour in the broth, it will redo those. All right. The other things are going to be the toppings, and I'm going to put those on top. So what I'll do is let me shut this off, and I'm going to pour this broth right in. There we go. And we have enough for another bowl. So that's nice hot broth. By the way, it's always good to pour into a warm bowl so you don't cool things off. So let's add our noodles. There we go. We're going to just stir that tara right up into the broth. So our peppers have been a little blanched, our mushrooms. So let's put the rest of it together. I'm going to put in my eggs. Find a blank spot there for the eggs. And let's put in it's not our bacon, but it's our, and I'm going to just pour this right around the edge, just like that. And the last thing we'll put in will be, all right. So there you have it. It's pretty hot. Some In fact, it's too hot for me to pick up. So maybe I won't pick it up. I'll just taste it here. So here's our ramen noodles. Oh, and by the way, eating your ramen noodles, always have a spoon and your chopsticks. And what you'll do is you'll get some of this broth. You'll get your noodles. Get that spoon to catch them. And it's good manners to slurp. And then just taste some of that broth. Yum. Lots of umami. So that's it for now. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.